Okay.
Okay. Bivushi, all set?
Yep.
All right. I guess we can start off with our introduction. Hello, everyone. I am Praneeta. I recently graduated this May with a major in computer science and minor in mathematics.
Um, Hi everyone, my name is Shrishtika. I also recently graduated this May with computer science major.
Hi everyone, I'm Yashaswi, and I also graduated this May with a degree in information science and cognitive science.
Hi everyone, I'm Bivushi and I'm a senior. I'm double majoring in computer science and in information science and a minor in business administration.
All right, let's get started. Okay, before we get started, picture this. You're in a meeting and a manager constantly misgenders a coworker who recently transitioned. Or maybe someone just cracks a borderline racist joke. You want to speak up, but instead you freeze. And then 3 hours later, you're like, oh, I should have said that. Sounds somewhat familiar. The problem isn't your values, it's your muscle memory. That's why we built AllyCo at our RIT hackathon under the theme Women and Gender Minorities, where we actually won the track for best use of ElevenLabs. If you aren't familiar with ElevenLabs, it is an AI tool that generates incredibly realistic human voices. We used AllyCo to create lifelike audio scenarios where you can practice real-world allyship entirely on your own. It also actively coaches you through these moments, giving you the flexibility to learn using either vocal or textual options. Ultimately, AllyCo gives you a safe, private space to build a space that your conversational muscle memory will be perfect and you can tackle any situations like that. Let's hand this off to Shrestha.
Thank you. So now that you know what the problem is, let me tell you what AllyCo actually does. So we have three scenarios. We have gender bias, racial microaggressions, and misgendering. Like Bernita mentioned earlier, a manager consistently using wrong pronouns or cracking a racist joke. You've seen scenarios like this. So AllyCo is where you practice. So next time you can actually say something in such scenarios. So basically what you do is you pick a scenario and it gives you a clear mission or a goal. Like for example, back them up without escalating the situation. Like you want to help that person, but you don't want to make things worse. So you're not just winging it. You're not just winging it. You exactly know what you're practicing for. Can we go on to the next slide? Yeah. So these are the key features. Well, we have like mission-based scenarios that gives you clear goal to work towards. And we have real-time coaching. That means like after you respond, you get immediate feedback. Like if you did something wrong, it doesn't really say what if you did wrong. It tells you how you could maybe do better without escalating the situation. And it does not judge what you say. It just tells you like what you could try next that could maybe handle the situation in a better way. And if you're dealing with something personal and you need to talk about it, you can also use the open voice chat feature that we have. So if you have like a situation that happens and instead of going off of like what is already on the scenarios, like for now we have three scenarios, but say something out of that scenario happens, that is where the open voice chat can be used. So you just be like, hey, this happened, what could I do? And then that's how it works. And lastly, we have, of course, like allyship is like a habit. It's not like a one-time thing. You would like to help somebody like every time, like whenever it's needed, right? So that is why we build like streaks and badges so that the person who's like using this app, they're like actually they have a reason to come back and like not a one-time thing. We have like a streak system similar to Duolingo. Yeah, I'll like to pass it on to Vivushi.
Now, talking about the tech stack that we used, starting with the front end and to give an overall structure to the app, we used next.js, which included our coding and overall front end side. Next, for our AI prompt engineering, we used Gemini, where we used the role play logics and where we also received Gemini's feedback, and we trained Gemini on how to speak, how to have a conversation with the other person, basically depending on scenarios to scenarios, and just so that it gives proper feedback to the person who is asking for help with also like additional information and additional feedbacks that they could use. So ElevenLabs, like Praneeta mentioned earlier, it's a voice technology. So basically we use ElevenLabs for voice interaction. So you could have a one-on-one chat with the bot, and so that you can customize yourself as well on like what type of bots do you want. ElevenLabs is a wonderful tool where you can either choose different kinds of voices you want, different kinds of accents, and using the collaboration of Gemini with ElevenLabs, we basically created our own AI bot that is going to be useful for our project. And lastly, to deploy our overall app, we used Vercel. And talking about the overall goal with a smooth loop that we intended when we first started making this app, it was basically an overall situation where the user is going to speak. Our AI model is going to respond in character depending on the different scenarios with different types of feedbacks and options. And sort of overall coaching feedbacks, and it's going to overall repeat until it feels natural to the human who is interacting with our AI. Now, talking about where AllyCo can be used in our future, I believe when we first created this app, we first only thought about our schools and universities where we could use this. But as we build it further, we realized that it's not only limited to schools and universities, different offices, different departments, different nonprofits and community programs can use them. People can use it for volunteer training. That can be included as HR training in different kinds of offices. Our DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office, has also given us positive feedback regarding our app. Additionally, also Sophie, Student Orientation and Family Engagement, when we first interacted with them about this app and asked about their feedback, they also have given us positive feedback on how this can be very useful to our future Lakers who are willing to join Oswego, because as we know, like Lakers come from all over the world, globally, internationally, domestically, and I believe this app is really going to help them succeed in their future careers as well. And I would like to pass on to Yashaswi.
Thank you, Bivushi. I'll be talking about some of the challenges we faced while building this app and where we hope to take it next. So one of our biggest challenges was limited Gemini token access. So since it was paid access and it was really expensive, we had to work around usage limits using like multiple Google accounts during development. And that made testing more time consuming, but it also pushed us to be more resourceful. And then another challenge we faced was latency and real-time interaction. Because AllyCo is a voice-based timing matters a lot. So even like small delays between the user speaking and the AI responding was making the conversation feel unnatural, and it was like interrupting the flow of practice. So we also focused a lot on keeping scenarios realistic. We wanted situations to feel more meaningful and believable, like something someone could actually experience in school or at work or in like everyday conversations. And finally, we also worked on providing actionable feedback. We didn't want feedback to feel like vague or generic, but we wanted the users leaving with each practice session knowing exactly what they did well and what they could improve next. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, we definitely want to expand with more scenarios, especially around workplace, power dynamics, and public settings. And we also want to add difficulty levels so users can choose between gentle support or more direct confrontation, depending on what they want to practice. And we also want better progress tracking so users can clearly see how their communication skills and confidence improve over time. And finally, we would love for organizations to be able to upload their own lessons and training scenarios so AllyCo can be customized for different teams, communities, and training environments. So with this, we conclude our presentation. AllyCo was built to help people feel more prepared and confident before difficult conversations happen. And by combining realistic voice practice with immediate feedback, we hope to create a tool that helps users speak up with more confidence in real life situations. Thank you, and if any questions.
Um,
Before any questions, we would like to give a little demo to our AllyCo. So if you would like to, you can also scan the QR code, or if you are using your desktop, laptop, then you could directly click on you could go to allyco.vercel.app. Now, let us see what happens when you first enter our app. So if you see at the main dashboard, you will be seeing what our main motto, our main theme of AllyCo that says for when you want to say something but couldn't. On your top right corner, you can see our streak badges. Since I am a regular user, for the past 2 days, we have been experimenting with our app. I have a 2-day streak, but as users go on daily, then their streak increases every day. And if they miss a day, then they'll be going back to 0. It's gonna give also help the user have a little introduction to how it works if I click here, and to a different scenarios that they could go through that I'll be showing later on. And these are the badges that Shrishtika was talking about. So in your dashboard, I'm going to start with the right-hand side that gives you a little open voice chat. So this is not scenario specific, but you can ask and you can talk about your experience that you faced recently, or there's something that you want to talk about, any information that you want to talk about. Hopefully this should work because we should have enough tokens, but sorry. So it's gonna talk something about, hi, tell me about a workplace situation you experienced or witnessed. Describe what happened, and I'll help you think through how you could respond. So I could show you, but I feel like I'm gonna overlap the sound. My supervisor bullied me at work. Sorry, my English is not my first language, so. Okay. Okay, let me restart. My supervisor was very biased to me at work. And it's gonna give you a little feedback using our Gemini prompt engineering. It's gonna tell you how the situation was unfair to you, and it's gonna give you a feedback on how in the next paragraph you can see it's gonna give you a step-by-step process on what you could do next regarding the situation. And we also tried by saying like, hey, my supervisor was very biased to me at work, but I don't want to do anything about it. And the AI response was something like, it's very normal to not say anything and be like, afraid of the authority, but then it's also very important to do this step. So it's gonna go like this. I just want to use very limited AI tokens right now, just so that I could show you more and more examples later on. So coming back to the home page, you could see our different tools that we have used for our app. And now when I click on pick a scenario, it's going to lead you to choosing a scenario. For now, we just have 3 scenarios: gender biasness, racial microaggressions, and misgendering. But every day we face thousands and thousands of scenarios. So as we go on, we plan to add more and more cases through which people of different backgrounds, different offices, different schools and universities, they can relate to us and practice even in more depth. So let me just choose a random scenario for racial microaggression. It's going to ask the user if they want to take a lesson or have a live conversation with it about it. Now, if I click on take a lesson, on your left-hand side, you can add your own PDF, but for now, we just have a little bullet points talking about racial microaggression and how it can affect one's mental and emotional well-being. And while you read your PDF, we just decided that it depends on department to department on how they want to present their PDFs, because there are different rules according to different offices and universities. So collaborating with their own DEI office, we could have their presented PDF out here. And if the user wants to ask questions about it, then at the side they can also do that. So let me see. Type tell me more about microaggressions. Okay. And it's gonna give you a little brief feedback about your question, and it's gonna tell you what microaggressions are and what are the examples to it. And as we go on, we can develop more and more features to this bot regarding we can also start by asking them. We can also start by them giving us different scenarios that we falls under microaggressions, because microaggression is a very broad term in itself. Now, and you can also have a live practice with it. So if I start a session, it's gonna give you a random scenario that a user might face, just so that to help you practice. So one example is during lunch, a coworker makes a joke about somebody's ethnicity. Everyone laughs uncomfortably. How do you respond? So let me start by saying, I wouldn't want to say anything because it's not my place to say. Okay. And look, like I mentioned, it's gonna thank the user for sharing the experience, and it's gonna mention how common the initial reaction it is. But it's also gonna mention how a key part of allyship is actually understanding that it is your place to speak and contribute to a respectful environment. And let's explore, and it's gonna ask further questions, such as, let's explore that. What makes you feel like it's not your place, and how might we reframe that? And I can either type or voice chat my answers. So I'm just gonna say, what if my boss kicks me out of my job? Okay. And you can just have further and further questions and answers with our app, and it's gonna give you more and more feedback, more help that someone might need, because every day everybody faces a new challenge in their life. So going back to our home, and you can, at the very end, you can also see how it works. It's gonna give you a little brief tutorial on, you can choose a challenge, talk it out, and get coached on it. And again, go to scenarios, and in the future, we will be having more than 3 scenarios. And like I mentioned at the very first, the badges. So since I just started this racial microaggression in my feed, so as you go along and you finish each and every questions that were present in racial microaggressions, you will be getting one badge for your win. So these are types of badges that we added for our 3 scenarios, and we will be adding more and more badges as we develop more and more scenarios. And I believe that is it. Have any questions, comments, feedbacks?
Can I throw in a quick question about training? I'm just wondering how or what you had to do to guarantee that the responses would be in line with what you were hoping for. So as an example, AI models, they tend to reinforce the user and tell you what you want to hear. So it's interesting to me that when you say, oh, it's not my place to speak, if I were to just type that into Gemini, it would probably tell me, yeah, you're right. And here I am validating what you already think. How did you get it to the point where it knew when and where to push back on a common thing?
So we had to feed Gemini a lot of resources, and we had to generate those resources, not generate, but we had to get those resources from reliable sources. So most of those sources we used were of United Nations and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that falls under United Nations. And it just that's what we use as in prompt engineering, because we had to train it a lot. Because like you mentioned, at first it was just giving us a simple line like, thank you for sharing. But no, we wanted more and more.
Yeah.
So like we had to feed it resources, we had to train it properly, just so that it depends on scenario to scenario as well. So it was just a lot of prompt engineering. We just like typed more and more. No, give me more. Like a user will ask you such as such situations. What are you going to respond? So and like we also told it to like add more and more resources to it as well.
What was the biggest challenge maybe that you found? Was there something that took the longest to get it? Like you kept saying, stop doing this, and it kept, was there one like particularly challenging part of the training process?
Yes, it was when like I feel like that was the hard part. Like you mentioned it already, like it just wouldn't give us additional feedback. Like we wanted to coach it, but then like it was just not ready to take it because it's an AI after all. It's not properly trained. So it was just after us to like feed it more and more resources, and like especially also finding the resources, because we needed reliable sources and not any like Reddit document. So like we had to go deep dive into search, and we made this in 24 hours. So we kind of had a time crunch on how many documents do we want, like where should we get all the documents from.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Excellent.
Just ask, what are your next plans for this?
So currently we are also talking with our DEI office, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office, and we just asked them for help because our Gemini tokens, we had to create like 1,000 Gmails just to like generate all those chats. And I was also scared today, like I hope it responds to us today in demo. So we need more budget for it, we need more funding. So I believe since we have we did talk to DI office, so we have to formally again talk to them about the budget and like how much finance we need. So I believe through them we will be going through different departments as well, and then other offices from there. Do you guys have anything to share? Praneeta, you're on mute.
Oh, no, like thank you so much, Bivushi. And again, I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to be able to show our project. I hope all of you enjoyed our presentation. And if anything, if you have any question or anything, like we're always going to be available. Even if the three of us graduated, our email is still active, and we're always looking for more feedback for our project because this is our passion project, and we really, it's not just like we didn't just put our hard work in it, but also we're really, really interested in making this huge. So feedback will be really appreciated, and thank you so much.
Great work.
Some
Thank
great
you.
stuff. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stop this session and we're